Maya Thompson clutched her orientation packet tighter as she stepped through the gleaming glass doors of Heartfelt and Associates, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in downtown Chicago. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the marble lobby that seemed to stretch endlessly before her. At 22, Maya had dreamed of this moment since her sophomore year at Northwestern University, but now that she was here, her confidence wavered like a candle in the wind. The lobby buzzed with activity as sharply dressed professionals hurried past, their heels clicking against the polished floor in a rhythm that sounded like a corporate symphony. Maya smoothed down her navy blazer, a hand-me-down from her older sister that she'd had tailored to fit her petite frame. She'd spent hours the night before practicing her introduction in the mirror, but now the words seemed to have evaporated from her mind like morning dew. "You must be Maya," said a cheerful voice behind her. She turned to see a woman in her 30s with auburn hair and a warm smile. "I'm Jennifer Walsh, your program coordinator. Welcome to Heartfelt and Associates." Maya managed a small smile and shook Jennifer's outstretched hand. "Thank you, Ms. Walsh. I'm excited to be here." Her voice came out softer than intended, barely audible above the ambient noise of the lobby. Jennifer led her toward the elevator bank, chatting easily about the building's history and the firm's recent expansion. Maya nodded along, trying to absorb every detail while fighting the familiar flutter of anxiety in her chest. She'd always been the quiet one in her family, the middle child who preferred books to birthday parties and research papers to group presentations. Her professors had encouraged her to apply for this internship, recognizing her analytical mind and attention to detail, but they'd also gently suggested she work on her public speaking skills. The elevator whisked them to the 15th floor, where the real heart of Heartfelt and Associates revealed itself. The open office space was a carefully orchestrated dance of productivity, with junior associates huddled around conference tables, senior partners gliding between offices with purpose, and the constant hum of keyboards creating a backdrop of focused energy. Maya felt simultaneously inspired and intimidated by the professional atmosphere that surrounded her. "Your desk is over here," Jennifer said, leading her to a small workstation near the windows. "You'll be working primarily with the research team under Dr. Patterson's supervision. He's expecting you in his office at 10:30 for your initial briefing." Maya settled into her chair and looked around at her new environment. The desk was equipped with a state-of-the-art computer, stacks of industry publications, and a small plant that someone had thoughtfully placed near the window. She opened her laptop and began reviewing the orientation materials, trying to familiarize herself with the company's structure and current projects. As the morning progressed, she found herself falling into a comfortable rhythm. The research work came naturally to her, and she appreciated the quiet focus it required. She'd always been better with data than with people, more comfortable analyzing market trends than making small talk in the break room. Her colleagues seemed friendly enough, offering brief introductions as they passed her desk, but Maya found herself responding with polite nods rather than engaging in extended conversations. Around 11:30, she decided to take a break and explore the office a bit more. She wandered toward the common areas, observing the casual interactions between coworkers and trying to imagine herself fitting into this professional ecosystem. The break room was spacious and modern, with a coffee station that looked more sophisticated than most cafes she'd visited, and comfortable seating areas where employees could relax between meetings. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, Maya noticed the office's commitment to accessibility. Ramps connected different levels of the workspace, and she'd noticed earlier that many of the meeting rooms had special equipment for video conferencing. It was clear that Heartfelt and Associates took inclusion seriously, which made her feel more optimistic about her place there. She was making her way back to her desk when she saw him. A man in his 50s, perhaps, was struggling with what appeared to be a heavy package near the reception area. He was well-dressed in a navy suit, but something about his body language suggested he wasn't familiar with the building's layout. Maya paused, watching as he looked around with a slightly confused expression, clearly searching for someone to help him. What struck her immediately was that he wasn't speaking. As other employees passed by, engaged in their own conversations or focused on their phones, the man seemed to be trying to get their attention through gestures, but his attempts were going unnoticed. Maya recognized the signs immediately, her heart rate quickening with a mix of recognition and empathy. Growing up, Maya's younger brother Marcus had been born with profound hearing loss. Their family had learned American Sign Language together, creating a household where communication flowed seamlessly between spoken English and ASL. Marcus was now a successful graphic designer in California, but those early years had taught Maya the importance of accessibility and the frustration that deaf individuals often faced in hearing-dominated environments. She watched the man for another moment, noting his increasing agitation as he tried unsuccessfully to communicate with passing employees. Some people smiled politely, but continued walking, while others seemed not to notice him at all. Maya felt a familiar surge of protective instinctness, the same feeling she'd had countless times when Marcus faced similar situations in public spaces. Taking a deep breath, Maya approached the man slowly, making sure he could see her coming. When she was close enough, she raised her hands and began to sign a simple greeting. "Hello," she signed, her hands forming the familiar gestures that felt like coming home. "Can I help you?" The man's face immediately transformed, relief flooding his features as he realized someone could communicate with him. His own hands moved quickly in response, and Maya found herself smiling at his obvious gratitude. "Thank you," he signed back. "I'm looking for the conference room. I have a meeting, but I'm not sure where to go." Maya's ASL was rusty from months of limited practice since leaving home for college, but the muscle memory returned quickly. "Which conference room?" she signed back. "I can show you the way." The man pulled out his phone and showed her a calendar appointment. Maya recognized the room number and nodded, indicating that she knew where it was. As they walked together down the corridor, she felt a warm satisfaction at being able to help, even as her natural shyness made her hyper-aware of the curious glances from other employees. "Are you new here?" The man signed as they walked. "Yes," Maya replied, her hands moving with increasing confidence. "Today is my first day. I'm an intern." "What's your name?" he asked, his expression genuinely interested. "Maya Thompson," she signed back, spelling out her last name with her fingers. "Nice to meet you, Maya. I'm David." They reached the conference room, and Maya pointed to the door. "This is it," she signed. "Your meeting room." David's smile was radiant with gratitude. "Thank you so much. You have no idea how much this means to me. Most people just walk past when they can't understand me." Maya felt a familiar pang of sadness at his words, remembering similar experiences with Marcus. "My brother is deaf," she signed. "I understand how frustrating it can be. Your brother is lucky to have a sister like you." David signed back. "Thank you for taking the time to help me." As David entered the conference room, Maya made her way back to her desk, feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, just used skills she'd learned out of love for her family. But she knew from experience how meaningful such small acts of inclusion could be. The rest of her first day passed in a blur of orientation sessions, system training, and introductory meetings. Maya found herself gradually relaxing into the routine, though she remained characteristically quiet during group discussions. She preferred to listen and observe, taking mental notes about office dynamics and professional expectations. Dr. Patterson, her supervisor, turned out to be a kindly man in his 60s who appreciated thoroughness and attention to detail. During their one-on-one meeting, he explained her primary responsibilities and expressed confidence in her abilities based on her academic record and letters of recommendation. "We believe in giving our interns real responsibility, Dr. Patterson explained as they reviewed her first assignment. "You'll be conducting preliminary research for a major client presentation next month. The work you do here will directly impact the recommendations we make to Fortune 500 companies." Maya felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervous anticipation. This was exactly the kind of meaningful work experience she'd hoped for. The chance to contribute to real business solutions rather than just filling filing cabinets or making coffee copies. Maya's second week at Heartfelt and Associates began with an unexpected email in her inbox. As she settled into her desk with her usual morning coffee, she noticed a message from someone in the executive suite, which immediately made her stomach flutter with nervous anticipation. Executive-level communication was rare for interns, and Maya wondered if she'd somehow made a mistake during her first week. The email was from Patricia Hamilton, executive assistant to the CEO, requesting Maya's presence at a brief meeting that afternoon. No context was provided, just a time, location, and a polite but formal tone that gave no hint about the meeting's purpose. Maya spent the morning trying to concentrate on her research assignments while her mind wandered to possible explanations for the summons. Dr. Patterson noticed her distraction during their mid-morning check-in. "Everything all right, Maya? You seem a bit preoccupied today." Maya hesitated before sharing her concern. "I received a meeting request from the CEO's office. I'm not sure what it's about, and I'm worried I might have done something wrong." Dr. Patterson's eyebrows rose slightly in surprise. "That's unusual, but I wouldn't worry too much. Robert Hartwell doesn't typically take punitive meetings with interns. If anything, it's probably something positive. You've been doing excellent work since you started." His reassurance helped somewhat, but Maya couldn't shake her anxiety as the day progressed. She'd learned from her colleagues that Robert Hartwell was something of a legend in the consulting world, having built the company from a small firm into a major player in the industry over the past 25 years. He was known for his strategic thinking, his demanding standards, and his ability to identify talent at all levels of the organization. At exactly 2 o'clock, Maya found herself standing outside the executive suite on the 20th floor, a space she'd only glimpsed during her initial tour. The atmosphere here was noticeably different from the open workspaces below, more formal, with rich wood paneling, artwork that probably cost more than her annual tuition, and a hushed quality that spoke of important decisions being made behind closed doors. Patricia Hamilton greeted her with professional warmth and led her to a smaller conference room adjacent to the main executive offices. "Mr. Hartwell will be with you in just a moment," she said, offering Maya a seat at the polished table and a glass of water. When Robert Hartwell entered the room, Maya's first impression was that he looked younger than she'd expected. His silver hair was the only obvious sign of his 58 years. Otherwise, he moved with the energy and purpose of someone much younger. He was tall and lean, with intelligent eyes and a presence that commanded attention without seeming intimidating. "Ms. Thompson," he said, extending his hand with a genuine smile. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I hope I'm not pulling you away from anything too pressing." Maya stood and shook his hand, surprised by his casual demeanor. "Not at all, Mr. Hartwell. I'm honored that you wanted to meet with me. Please sit down," he said, taking a seat across from her rather than at the head of the table. "I wanted to talk to you about something that happened last week. You helped someone find their way to a conference room, someone who was having difficulty communicating with other staff members." Maya's heart skipped a beat as she realized where this conversation was heading. "Yes, sir. There was a gentleman who needed directions, and I was able to help him in sign language." Robert's expression became more serious, though not disapproving. "That gentleman was David Morrison, one of our most important clients. He's the Chief Technology Officer of Morrison Industries, which accounts for approximately 15% of our annual revenue. He's also deaf, as I'm sure you realized." The weight of this revelation settled over Maya like a blanket. She'd helped a major client without even knowing it, and now she wasn't sure if that was a good thing or something that would get her in trouble for overstepping boundaries. "David called me personally after that meeting," Robert continued, "to tell me about your interaction with him. He was incredibly impressed, not just with your sign language skills, but with your natural empathy and willingness to help. He said it was the first time in his 15 years of doing business with us that anyone had been able to communicate with him directly." Maya felt her cheeks warm with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. "I was just doing what seemed natural, Mr. Hartwell. My younger brother is deaf, so I've been signing since I was a child." "Exactly," Robert said, leaning forward slightly. "What seemed natural to you was extraordinary to David. And it got me thinking about our company's commitment to inclusion and accessibility. We pride ourselves on being forward-thinking, but David's experience revealed a significant gap in our service." He paused, studying Maya's face carefully. "David suggested that we consider bringing you into a more client-facing role, given your unique skills and natural ability to connect with people. I have to admit, I was initially skeptical. You're an intern, you're shy by your own admission, and client relations typically requires extensive experience." Maya's heart sank slightly at his words. though she tried to keep her expression neutral. She'd been hoping for positive feedback, but it sounded like Robert was building up to an explanation of why her skills weren't quite right for advancement. However, Robert continued, David was quite persuasive. He pointed out that technical skills can be taught, but empathy and genuine care for others are much rarer qualities. He also mentioned that the deaf and hard-of-hearing community represents a significant and often underserved market segment. Maya waited, not sure how to respond, so she simply nodded and listened. I've been reviewing your academic record and your performance evaluations from Dr. Patterson, Robert said. Your analytical skills are exceptional, your attention to detail is remarkable, and your written communication is clear and professional. The only area where you seem to struggle is with public speaking and large group presentations. Yes, sir, Maya admitted quietly. I've always been more comfortable with one-on-one interactions or small groups. Large presentations make me very nervous. Robert smiled slightly. That's not necessarily a weakness in client relations, Maya. Some of our most successful account managers are quietly confident rather than traditionally charismatic. Clients often prefer working with someone who listens carefully and responds thoughtfully rather than someone who dominates the conversation. He reached for a folder that had been sitting on the table. I have a proposition for you, if you're interested. We're launching a new initiative focused on accessibility consulting for our corporate clients. Companies are increasingly recognizing the business value of inclusive design and accessible workplace practices. Maya felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. This sounded like exactly the kind of work that would combine her analytical skills with her personal experience, but it also sounded far beyond what she'd expected to accomplish during her internship. David Morrison has agreed to serve as our first case study client, Robert continued. Morrison Industries wants to audit their entire organization for accessibility compliance and develop a comprehensive inclusion strategy. They need someone who understands both the technical requirements and the human impact of these issues. He opened the folder and slid some documents across the table to Maya. I'd like you to consider transitioning from your current research role to become the lead intern on this project. You'd work directly with our senior consultants, but you'd also have significant responsibility for client communication and needs assessment. Maya's eyes widened as she looked at the project outline. The scope was enormous. Everything from workplace accommodations to customer service accessibility to inclusive marketing strategies. It was the kind of high-impact work she'd dreamed of doing, but had never imagined being offered so early in her career. Mr. Hartwell, she said slowly, this sounds incredible, but I have to be honest. I'm not sure I'm qualified for this level of responsibility. I'm just an intern, and I don't have experience with client management or project leadership. Robert nodded approvingly. I appreciate your honesty, Maya. Overconfidence is a much bigger problem than appropriate humility. You wouldn't be working alone. You'd have mentors and supervisors every step of the way. But David specifically requested that you be involved in the project, and I trust his judgment about what his company needs. He leaned back in his chair, giving Maya time to process the information. I should also mention that this would come with a promotion from intern to junior consultant, which includes a significant salary increase and the possibility of being hired full-time after graduation, depending on your performance. Maya felt like her head was spinning. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a nervous college student hoping to get meaningful experience during her summer internship. Now she was being offered the opportunity to lead a major project for one of the company's most important clients. I don't need an answer immediately, Robert said, seeming to sense her overwhelming. Take the weekend to think about it. Discuss it with your family, your mentors, whoever you trust for advice. This is a big opportunity, but it's also a significant commitment and a lot of pressure. Can I ask you something, Mr. Hartwell? Maya said, finding her voice despite her nervousness. Of course. Why are you taking this chance on me? I mean, I'm grateful, but there must be more experienced people who could handle this project. Robert was quiet for a moment, considering his response carefully. You know, Maya, I've been in this business for over 25 years. I've seen a lot of talented people come and go, and I've learned to recognize certain qualities that can't be taught in business school. You showed genuine kindness to a stranger without any expectation of reward or recognition. You communicated across a language barrier that most people don't even acknowledge exists. And you did it all so naturally that you didn't even think it was worth mentioning. He stood up, indicating that the meeting was coming to an end. Those aren't just nice personality traits, Maya. In the consulting world, they're competitive advantages. Our clients are increasingly looking for partners who understand diversity, inclusion, and authentic human connection. You demonstrated all of those qualities in a single 5-minute interaction. As Maya gathered her things to leave, Robert handed her his business card. My direct email and phone number are on there. If you decide to take on this project, or if you have any questions this weekend, don't hesitate to reach out. Walking back to the elevator, Maya felt like she was floating through a dream. The shy intern who had struggled to introduce herself 3 weeks ago was being offered the chance to lead a major client project. It was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Back at her desk, Maya tried to focus on her current assignments, but her mind kept drifting to the conversation with Robert Hartwell. She thought about David Morrison and how grateful he'd looked when someone finally understood his signs. She thought about her brother Marcus and all the times he'd faced barriers that seemed insurmountable until someone took the time to find a solution. Dr. Patterson stopped by her desk late in the afternoon. I heard you had an interesting meeting today, he said with a knowing smile. Did you know about the project? Maya asked. Robert mentioned he was considering you for something special, but he didn't share the details. I take it the conversation went well. Maya nodded, still processing everything. He offered me a promotion and a chance to work on accessibility consulting. It's amazing, but I'm not sure I'm ready for it. Dr. Patterson pulled up a nearby chair. Can I give you some advice, Maya? In my 30 years in this industry, I've seen countless people turn down opportunities because they didn't feel ready. The truth is, you're never really ready for the next level until you're already doing the work. Monday morning arrived with Maya's decision made, though her hands still trembled slightly as she walked into Robert Hartwell's office at exactly 9 o'clock. She'd spent the entire weekend weighing the pros and cons, talking to her family, her professors, and even reaching out to a few alumni who worked in consulting. Every conversation had led her to the same conclusion. This was an opportunity too valuable to let fear hold her back from pursuing. Good morning, Maya, Robert said, looking up from his computer with an expectant expression. I'm hoping you have good news for me. Yes, sir, Maya replied, her voice stronger than she felt. I'd like to accept the position and take on the accessibility consulting project. Robert's face broke into a genuine smile. Excellent. I was hoping you'd say that. Patricia has already prepared your new employee paperwork, and I'd like you to meet your project team this afternoon. The transition from intern to junior consultant happened with surprising speed. By noon, Maya had been moved to a new desk in the client services department, equipped with upgraded technology and given access to company resources she'd only heard about during orientation. The physical changes were significant, but the psychological shift felt even more dramatic. Her new supervisor was Elena Rodriguez, a senior consultant in her 40s who had built her reputation on large-scale organizational change projects. When Elena welcomed Maya to the team, her warmth was immediate and genuine. I've heard wonderful things about you from both Robert and Dr. Patterson, Elena said as they sat in her office reviewing the Morrison Industries project. Robert shared the story of how you met David Morrison, and I have to say, I'm impressed by your instincts. Client relations is fundamentally about understanding what people need, often before they fully understand it themselves. Elena spread out several documents on her desk, each one representing a different aspect of the accessibility consulting project. The scope of work is substantial, but we're going to approach it systematically. David Morrison has given us unprecedented access to his organization, which means we can create a truly comprehensive assessment. As Elena explained the project timeline and deliverables, Maya felt both excitement and nervousness building in equal measure. The work involved everything from conducting employee surveys about workplace accessibility to analyzing Morrison Industries' customer service protocols for deaf and hard-of-hearing clients. It was exactly the kind of meaningful, impactful work she'd hoped to do in the consulting world. But the responsibility felt enormous. Your primary role, Elena continued, will be to serve as our accessibility specialist, and David Morrison's main point of contact. You'll be conducting interviews with employees who have disabilities, reviewing company policies and procedures, and helping us understand the real-world impact of the changes we recommend. Maya nodded, taking careful notes. How much direct client interaction will I be having? Quite a bit, actually. David specifically requested that you be present for all major meetings and presentations. He feels strongly that having someone who can communicate with him directly will improve the quality of our recommendations. That afternoon, Maya attended her first team meeting for the Morrison Industries project. The conference room was filled with senior consultants, data analysts, and project coordinators, all of whom had significantly more experience than she did. As introductions were made around the table, Maya felt the familiar flutter of anxiety that came with being the youngest and least experienced person in a professional setting. Maya will be our accessibility specialist for this project, Elena announced when it was her turn to introduce the new team member. She brings unique insights and communication skills that will be invaluable as we work with Morrison Industries to develop their inclusion strategy. The response from her new colleagues was universally positive, though Maya suspected some of them were curious about how a recent intern had landed such a significant role. She tried to project confidence while listening to the initial project discussions, taking notes on everything from budget considerations to timeline constraints. After the meeting, several team members approached her with introductions and offers of support. James Chun, a data analyst who would be working closely with her on employee surveys, was particularly welcoming. I have to admit, I'm excited to work on something with this kind of social impact, James said as they walked back toward their desks. Most of our projects are about efficiency and cost reduction. This feels like we're actually going to make people's work lives better. Maya smiled, feeling some of her nervousness begin to fade. That's exactly what drew me to it. My brother is deaf, so I've seen firsthand how much difference inclusive design can make. Really? That must give you some valuable perspective on what we're trying to accomplish here. As they continued talking, Maya realized that her personal connection to the project wasn't something to be embarrassed about. It was actually one of her greatest assets as a consultant. Her lived experience with accessibility issues would help the team understand nuances that might otherwise be overlooked. The first major milestone came 2 weeks later, an initial site visit to Morrison Industries headquarters in downtown Chicago. Maya had been nervous about this visit for days, knowing that she would be representing Heartfelt and Associates in front of David Morrison and his executive team. Elena had coached her extensively on professional presentation skills, but Maya still felt the familiar pre-performance anxiety that had plagued her since childhood. Morrison Industries occupied a sleek modern building with an impressive lobby that rivaled Heartfelt and Associates' own space. As the consulting team checked in with building security, Maya noticed several accessibility features that she wouldn't have paid attention to before starting this project. Accessible parking spaces close to the entrance, automatic doors with extended timing, and visual alert systems alongside traditional audio announcements. David Morrison met them in the lobby, and Maya felt a warm surge of recognition when she saw his familiar smile. This time, however, the interaction was completely different. Instead of a chance encounter between strangers, this was a professional meeting where Maya represented her company's expertise and recommendations. Maya, David signed as the group gathered. I'm so glad you're part of this project. I've been looking forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Maya signed back, conscious that her colleagues were watching this interaction with interest. I'm excited to learn about your organization and see how we can help improve accessibility. Elena, who had been studying the exchange, stepped forward with a smile. I can see that David is in excellent hands with Maya as our accessibility specialist. Shall we begin our tour? The tour of Morrison Industries facilities was both enlightening and concerning. While the company had made efforts to comply with basic ADA requirements, there were numerous gaps in true accessibility. Maya noticed issues that her hearing colleagues might have missed: conference rooms without visual alert systems for fire alarms, break rooms where essential information was only available in audio format, and workstations that weren't easily adaptable for employees with different physical needs. More importantly, Maya observed the social dynamics in the workplace. While David Morrison was clearly respected as a leader, she noticed subtle signs that communication barriers affected his daily interactions. Meetings seemed to flow around him rather than including him fully, and she saw several instances where important information was shared informally in ways that excluded him from the conversation. During a break in the tour, David pulled Maya aside to share his observations about these challenges. The technical accommodations are important, he signed, but the bigger issue is cultural. Most of my employees want to be inclusive, but they don't know how. They're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, so they often avoid interacting with me at all. Maya nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. My brother has experienced similar situations. People mean well, but discomfort with disability leads to exclusion even when that's not the intention. Exactly. I'm hoping this project can address both the technical and cultural aspects of accessibility. I want Morrison Industries to be a place where employees with disabilities don't just survive, but actually thrive. As the team returned to Hartwell and Associates that evening, Maya felt energized by the day's discoveries. She had pages of notes about potential improvements, from simple policy changes to comprehensive training programs. More importantly, she felt confident that she was developing a genuine understanding of the client's needs and priorities. Elena pulled her aside as they were packing up their materials. You did excellent work today, Maya. Your observations about the social dynamics were particularly insightful. I could see David responding to you in a way that he doesn't with the rest of us, and that's going to be invaluable as we develop our recommendations. That evening, Maya called Marcus to share her experiences from the site visit. It sounds like you're really making a difference, Marcus signed during their video call. I wish more companies would take this kind of comprehensive approach to accessibility. The challenging part is figuring out how to create sustainable change, Maya replied. It's not enough to just install some new equipment or update a few policies. We need to help them build a culture where inclusion is natural, not forced. That's exactly right. And you're the perfect person to help them figure that out because you understand both the business side and the human impact. As Maya prepared for bed that night, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just a few short weeks. The shy intern who had nervously walked into Hartwell and Associates was slowly transforming into a confident professional who felt capable of tackling complex challenges. She still had moments of self-doubt, especially when presenting ideas in front of senior colleagues. But she was beginning to trust her instincts and value her unique perspective. The Morrison Industries project was becoming more than just a professional opportunity. It was a chance to bridge two worlds that had always been important to her. Her academic training in business analysis provided the framework for understanding organizational challenges, while her personal experience with disability gave her insights that no textbook could teach. Over the following weeks, Maya threw herself into the project with increasing confidence. She conducted extensive interviews with Morrison Industries employees, both those with disabilities and their colleagues, gathering data about current challenges and potential solutions. Her natural empathy and careful listening skills made people comfortable sharing honest feedback about sensitive topics. One particularly memorable interview was with Sarah Kim. The Morrison Industries project reached a critical milestone 6 weeks after Maya joined the consulting team. The comprehensive accessibility audit was complete, and the team had developed a detailed set of recommendations that would transform the company's approach to inclusion. Now came the most challenging part of the process, presenting their findings to the Morrison Industries executive team and securing buy-in for implementation. Maya found herself in an unusual position as the presentation date approached. While she had become increasingly comfortable with her role as accessibility specialist and client liaison, the prospect of presenting to a room full of executives still triggered her familiar anxiety. Elena had assured her that her insights would be crucial to the presentation's success, but Maya struggled with the contradiction between her growing professional confidence and her persistent fear of public speaking. Remember, Elena said during their final preparation session, you're not just presenting data to them. You're helping them understand how accessibility improvements will impact real people's lives. That's something you understand better than anyone else on our team. The presentation was scheduled for a Thursday morning in Morrison Industries' executive conference room. As Maya walked into the building that morning, carrying her laptop bag and a folder full of carefully prepared materials, she felt the same nervous energy that had accompanied her first day at Heartwell and Associates. But there was a difference now. Beneath the anxiety was a solid foundation of knowledge, experience, and genuine conviction about the value of their recommendations. The executive team was already assembled when the consulting team arrived. David Morrison sat at the head of the table, flanked by his chief financial officer, chief operating officer, head of human resources, and several other senior leaders. Maya had met most of them during the data collection phase, but presenting to them as a group felt significantly more intimidating than individual interviews. Elena opened the presentation with an overview of the project's scope and methodology. She was a skilled presenter, walking the executives through the business case for accessibility improvements with confidence and clarity. Maya watched and listened, taking notes on the executives' reactions and questions. Our analysis reveals significant opportunities for Morrison Industries to become a leader in workplace accessibility, Elena explained, advancing to a slide that showed potential cost savings and revenue enhancements. The improvements we're recommending will not only create a better work environment for employees with disabilities, but also enhance your company's ability to serve customers with diverse needs. As Elena moved through the technical recommendations, updated software systems, physical workspace modifications, and policy changes, Maya felt her nervousness increasing. She knew that her portion of the presentation would focus on the human impact of these changes, drawing heavily on the employee interviews she had conducted. This was where her unique perspective would be most valuable, but also where she felt most exposed. Maya Thompson, our accessibility specialist, will now walk you through the employee feedback and cultural recommendations, Elena said, turning to her with an encouraging smile. Maya stood up, taking a deep breath as she moved to the front of the room. She had practiced this presentation countless times, both alone and with Elena, but facing the actual audience made her heart race with familiar anxiety. "Good morning," she began, her voice slightly softer than she intended. "Over the past 6 weeks, I've had the privilege of speaking with more than 40 Morrison Industries employees about their experiences with workplace accessibility. What I learned goes far beyond technical accommodations." As Maya began sharing stories from her interviews, she noticed something interesting happening. The executives were leaning forward, engaged in a way that went beyond polite professional attention. When she described Sarah Kim's experience returning to work after losing her vision, she saw genuine concern and empathy in their faces. "Sarah told me that the hardest part wasn't learning new technology," Maya continued, finding her rhythm as she focused on the human stories rather than her own nervousness. It was feeling like her colleagues didn't know how to interact with her anymore. She felt isolated in meetings, excluded from informal conversations, and uncertain about her career prospects. David Morrison was nodding along, clearly recognizing the experiences Maya was describing. When she made eye contact with him, he signed "exactly right," which gave her an additional boost of confidence. Maya clicked to her next slide, which showed survey results about employee attitudes toward disability inclusion. 78% of your employees said they want to be more inclusive but don't know how. They're afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, so they often avoid interactions entirely. The chief operating officer, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, raised her hand. What did employees suggest as potential solutions to this problem? Maya felt a moment of gratitude for the question, as it allowed her to shift into an area where she felt particularly confident. The most common request was for disability awareness training, but not the traditional compliance-focused approach that many companies use. Employees wanted practical guidance about communication, everyday interactions, and inclusive meeting practices. She advanced to a slide showing a proposed training framework that combined disability etiquette, communication skills, and practical accommodation procedures. "We're recommending a comprehensive training program that addresses both technical requirements and social interactions. The goal is to create an environment where inclusion feels natural rather than forced." As Maya continued through her portion of the presentation, she realized that something had shifted. Her nervousness hadn't disappeared entirely, but it was no longer dominating her thoughts. Instead, she was focused on conveying the importance of their recommendations and helping the executives understand the real impact of their decisions. When she reached the section about communication accessibility, Maya made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of simply reading from her prepared remarks, she began incorporating sign language to demonstrate the points she was making. Effective communication isn't just about providing interpreters for formal meetings, she said, her hands moving as she spoke. It's about creating an environment where deaf and hard-of-hearing employees feel included in everyday interactions. The executives watched with obvious interest as Maya demonstrated basic signs for common workplace phrases. She could see David Morrison's approval as she showed how simple gestures could make a significant difference in daily communication. Learning basic sign language isn't just about accommodation, Maya explained. It's about respect and inclusion. When hearing employees make an effort to communicate directly with deaf colleagues, it creates a sense of belonging that goes far beyond technical compliance. Jennifer Walsh raised her hand again. Would you be able to help us develop this kind of training program? I mean, would Hartwell and Associates be interested in extending this project to include implementation support? Maya glanced at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. I believe that would be possible, Maya replied. Implementation support is a natural extension of our consulting services, and I'd be very interested in helping Morrison Industries develop a comprehensive training program. As the presentation continued, Maya found herself fielding questions with increasing confidence. Her deep understanding of both the business implications and the human impact of accessibility improvements allowed her to provide nuanced, thoughtful answers that clearly impressed the executive team. The CFO asked about return on investment for accessibility improvements, and Maya was able to cite specific data about productivity gains, employee retention, and market expansion opportunities. When the head of human resources inquired about legal compliance requirements, Maya provided detailed information about both current regulations and emerging trends in accessibility law. But the most powerful moment came when David Morrison himself addressed the room. I want to thank Maya for the work she's done on this project, he signed, while Maya provided voice interpretation for the hearing executives. For the first time since I became CTO, I feel like someone truly understands the challenges that employees with disabilities face in our organization. He paused, looking around the table at his leadership team. Maya's recommendations aren't just about compliance or even accommodation. They're about creating a workplace where everyone can contribute their best work, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. After the presentation concluded and the executives had asked their final questions, Maya felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had successfully presented complex, sensitive material to a high-level audience while advocating for meaningful organizational change. More importantly, she had done it authentically, drawing on her personal experience and genuine conviction rather than trying to imitate someone else's presentation style. Elena pulled her aside as they were packing up their materials. That was exceptional work, Maya. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've rarely seen a presenter connect with an audience the way you just did. You didn't just share information, you helped them understand why this work matters. As the consulting team returned to Hartwell and Associates, Maya reflected on how much she had grown over the past 2 months. The shy intern who had struggled with basic introductions was becoming a confident professional who could present complex ideas to senior executives. But more than that, she was discovering her own unique value in the consulting world. That afternoon, Robert Hartwell stopped by her desk with news that would further accelerate her professional development. Maya, I just got off the phone with David Morrison, he said with a pleased expression. Morrison Industries wants to move forward with implementation, and they've specifically requested that you lead the training and culture change components of the project. 6 months after Maya Thompson first walked through the glass doors of Hartwell and Associates as a nervous intern, she found herself standing in the same lobby, but everything had changed. Today, she was preparing to deliver a keynote presentation at the company's annual client conference, sharing insights from the accessibility consulting practice that she had helped build from the ground up. The transformation had been remarkable, both personally and professionally. What began as a simple act of kindness toward a stranger had evolved into a comprehensive consulting practice that was generating significant revenue for Hartwell and Associates while making a measurable impact on organizational culture across multiple industries. The Morrison Industries implementation had exceeded everyone's expectations. Over the past 4 months, Maya had worked closely with their HR team to develop and deliver disability awareness training to all employees, establish mentorship programs for workers with disabilities, and create communication protocols that ensured inclusive participation in all aspects of company operations. The results spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction scores had increased dramatically, particularly among workers with disabilities, and the company had successfully recruited several highly qualified candidates who had been overlooked by other organizations. But the success at Morrison Industries was just the beginning. Word about Maya's work had spread quickly through Chicago's business community, and Heartwell & Associates was now fielding requests for accessibility consulting from companies across the Midwest. Maya had been promoted to Senior Accessibility Consultant, a newly created position that gave her significant autonomy to develop the practice according to her vision and values. The personal transformation was equally significant. The shy, uncertain intern had evolved into a confident professional who could command attention in boardrooms and conference halls. Maya had learned to leverage her natural empathy and careful listening skills as leadership tools, developing a consulting style that was both analytical and deeply human. As she prepared for today's keynote, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. The presentation would focus on the business case for accessibility consulting, but she planned to open with the story of her first encounter with David Morrison. It was a reminder that the most significant professional opportunities often arise from simple human connections rather than strategic networking or career planning. The conference was being held in the ballroom of a downtown Chicago hotel, with representatives from over 100 companies in attendance. Maya had spoken at smaller events over the past few months, but this was her largest audience yet, and she felt the familiar flutter of pre-presentation nerves. Elena Rodriguez, who had become not just a supervisor but a genuine mentor, approached Maya as she was reviewing her notes one final time. "How are you feeling?" Elena asked with a warm smile. "Nervous," Maya admitted, "but excited too. It's hard to believe how much has changed since that first day when I helped David find the conference room. You know what I think the most remarkable part of your story is?" Elena said, "It's not just that you seized an opportunity when it presented itself. It's that you stayed true to who you are throughout the entire process. You didn't try to become someone else to succeed in consulting. You found a way to make consulting work for who you already were." As Maya walked onto the stage and looked out at the audience, she spotted several familiar faces. David Morrison was in the front row, accompanied by Jennifer Walsh from Morrison Industries' leadership team. Robert Hartwell sat with the other Hartwell & Associates executives, his expression conveying both pride and satisfaction. In the middle section, she could see representatives from the 3 companies that were currently implementing accessibility initiatives based on her recommendations. "Good morning," Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom's sound system. 6 months ago, I was a shy intern who was afraid to speak up in meetings. Today, I'm standing here as the leader of Heartwell & Associates' accessibility consulting practice. The story of how that transformation happened begins with a simple question: what does it mean to truly help someone? As Maya shared the story of her first encounter with David Morrison, she could see the audience leaning in with interest. The narrative had become polished through multiple retellings, but the core emotion, the satisfaction of connecting across a communication barrier, remained genuine and powerful. "I didn't help David Morrison that day because I was trying to advance my career," Maya continued. "I helped him because my brother taught me that accessibility barriers aren't just inconveniences. They're fundamental barriers to participation and belonging. What I learned is that this personal understanding of accessibility challenges could become a powerful professional asset." She clicked to her first slide, which showed revenue figures for the accessibility consulting practice. "In the 6 months since we launched this initiative, our accessibility practice has generated over $2 million in new revenue for Heartwell & Associates. But, more importantly, we've helped 12 companies create more inclusive workplaces for their employees and customers." Maya walked the audience through case studies from several client engagements, highlighting both the business benefits and the human impact of accessibility improvements. She shared data about increased employee retention, enhanced customer satisfaction, and expanded market reach that had resulted from comprehensive accessibility initiatives. But the presentation's most powerful section focused on organizational culture change. Maya had developed a framework for measuring inclusion that went beyond compliance metrics to assess authentic belonging and participation. Traditional diversity and inclusion efforts often focus on representation, getting people in the door, Maya explained. Our approach focuses on participation, ensuring that once people are in the door, they can fully contribute their talents and perspectives. She showed before and after survey results from Morrison Industries, where employee satisfaction among workers with disabilities had increased by 40% in just 4 months. These improvements weren't achieved through expensive technology or major structural changes. They were achieved by helping employees understand how to communicate more effectively and create more inclusive meeting environments. During the question and answer session, Maya found herself fielding inquiries from executives who were clearly interested in bringing similar programs to their own organizations. A pharmaceutical company CEO asked about scaling accessibility training across multiple locations. The head of operations for a major retailer wanted to know about adapting the framework for customer-facing accessibility improvements. But the most meaningful question came from a young man who identified himself as a recent college graduate with cerebral palsy. As someone who's about to enter the business world, he said, "What advice would you give to young professionals with disabilities who want to build successful careers?" Maya paused for a moment, thinking about her brother Marcus and the other individuals with disabilities she'd met throughout this project. First, recognize that your disability isn't something to hide or overcome. It's part of what gives you unique insights and perspectives that can be valuable in the business world, she said. Second, look for organizations that are genuinely committed to inclusion, not just compliance. And third, don't be afraid to educate your colleagues about accessibility. Most people want to be inclusive, but don't know how. She smiled, thinking about her own journey. And remember that career paths are rarely linear. Sometimes the most meaningful opportunities arise from unexpected moments when you simply choose to help someone else. After the presentation concluded, Maya was surrounded by attendees who wanted to continue the conversation. Business cards were exchanged, follow-up meetings were scheduled, and she found herself booking consulting engagements that would keep her busy for months to come. David Morrison approached her as the crowd began to thin. "Maya, that was an outstanding presentation," he signed. "I'm proud to have played a small role in launching your career." "You played much more than a small role," Maya signed back. "You gave me the opportunity to discover what I was capable of achieving." "Actually," David replied with a smile, "I think you already had those capabilities. I just gave you a chance to use them." As the conference concluded and Maya gathered her materials, she reflected on how profoundly her life had changed. The shy intern who had struggled with basic introductions was now being recognized as an expert in her field, sought after by companies across multiple industries. But perhaps more importantly, she had found work that felt deeply meaningful. Every accessibility audit, every training session, every policy recommendation had the potential to change someone's daily experience for the better. She thought about Sarah Kim, who had recently been promoted at Morrison Industries, and the young man with cerebral palsy who had asked his question during today's Q&A session, and countless other individuals who would benefit from more inclusive workplace practices. That evening, Maya called her family to share news of the day's success. Marcus was particularly excited to hear about the expansion of the accessibility practice. "Maya, you're changing the business world one company at a time," he signed during their video call. "I'm so proud of what you've accomplished." "I couldn't have done any of this without the foundation you gave me," Maya replied. "Growing up with you taught me that accessibility isn't about charity or accommodation. It's about recognizing the value that everyone brings to the table." As Maya prepared for bed that night, she thought about the year ahead. Heartfelt and Associates was planning to expand the accessibility practice nationally, with Maya leading the initiative. She would be traveling to major cities across the country, working with Fortune 500 companies to develop comprehensive inclusion strategies. The shy intern was still there, somewhere in her professional persona, but she was balanced now by confidence earned through achievement and purpose discovered through meaningful work. Maya had learned that leadership didn't require her to become someone else. It required her to become the best version of herself. The next morning, Maya arrived at the office to find an email from Robert Hartwell announcing her promotion to practice director for accessibility consulting. The message included news that Hartwell and Associates had received its largest accessibility consulting contract to date, a multi-million-dollar engagement with a major technology company that wanted to become the industry standard for inclusive design. As Maya read through the project details, she smiled at the irony of her situation. The shy intern who had once been afraid to speak up in meetings was now being asked to transform organizational culture at some of the country's largest companies. It was challenging and exciting in equal measure, but Maya felt ready for whatever came next. Her journey from intern to practice director had taught her that the most powerful professional development often happens not through careful planning but through remaining open to unexpected opportunities and staying true to one's authentic values. Sometimes, the simple act of helping a stranger can change the trajectory of an entire career. Maya Thompson had discovered that her greatest professional strengths, empathy, careful listening, and genuine concern for others, weren't limitations to overcome, but assets to leverage. In a business world that often prioritized aggressive networking and self-promotion, she had found success by focusing on understanding and serving others. As she began preparing for the challenges and opportunities ahead, Maya knew that her story was just beginning. The accessibility consulting practice would continue to grow and evolve, but its foundation would remain the same simple principle that had guided her from the beginning. When you help others communicate and participate fully, everyone benefits. The shy intern had become a confident leader, but more importantly, she had found work that aligned with her deepest values and had the potential to create lasting positive change in the world. It was exactly the kind of career she had dreamed of building, achieved through a path she never could have planned or predicted. Maya felt a familiar flutter of nervous excitement. "That's wonderful news, Mr. Hartwell. I'm honored that they have that much confidence in me." "It gets better," Robert continued. "David was so impressed with today's presentation that he's recommended you to 3 other companies in his network. We're looking at potentially launching an entire accessibility consulting practice, with you as the lead specialist." The magnitude of this opportunity took Maya's breath away. What had started as a summer internship was evolving into a career-defining opportunity that would establish her as an expert in a rapidly growing field. "I know it's a lot to consider," Robert said, seemingly reading her thoughts. "But I want you to know that the entire leadership team is behind this initiative. We believe you have the skills and perspective to build something truly significant here." As Maya sat at her desk that evening, reviewing notes from the day's presentation and thinking about the opportunities ahead, she marveled at the unexpected path her career was taking. Her decision to help a stranger with directions had led to the most meaningful work experience of her life, and now it was opening doors to possibilities she had never imagined. The shy intern was still there, somewhere inside her professional persona, but she was balanced now by growing confidence, proven expertise, and a clear sense of purpose. Maya was beginning to understand that her quieter leadership style, her empathy, and her lived experience with accessibility challenges weren't limitations to overcome. They were her greatest professional assets. The Morrison Industries project was entering its final phase, but Maya knew it was really just the beginning of her journey as a consultant who could bridge the gap between business strategy and human impact. She was ready to take on whatever challenges came next, armed with the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful professional tools are simply kindness, understanding, and the willingness to help others communicate across any barrier. A marketing coordinator who had recently returned to work after losing most of her vision due to a medical condition. Sarah's insights about the challenges of navigating workplace technology and social interactions provided valuable data for the consulting team's recommendations. "The hardest part wasn't learning new software or adjusting my workspace," Sarah explained during their conversation. "It was feeling like I didn't belong anymore, like my colleagues didn't know how to relate to me." Maya understood that feeling intimately, though for different reasons. Her own experience of feeling like an outsider in professional settings, combined with her observations of Marcus's experiences, gave her a framework for understanding Sarah's perspective. As the data collection phase of the project neared completion, Maya began working with James Chun and the other analysts to synthesize their findings into comprehensive recommendations. The work was challenging and detail-oriented, requiring her to balance statistical analysis with human insights, but Maya found it deeply satisfying. She was beginning to realize that consulting wasn't just about solving business problems. It was about understanding people and organizations well enough to recommend changes that would actually work in the real world. And for the first time in her professional life, Maya felt like she had found work that utilized all of her skills and experiences, not just the ones that looked good on a resume. The transformation from shy intern to confident consultant wasn't complete yet, but Maya could feel herself growing into the role with each passing day. She was learning to trust her voice in meetings, to ask probing questions during client interactions, and to present her ideas with conviction even when she felt nervous. The Morrison Industries project was providing her with exactly the kind of challenging, meaningful work experience she needed to build her professional confidence and skills. He paused, looking at her with fatherly concern. Your research work has been exemplary, and, more importantly, you have something that can't be taught. You genuinely care about helping people. That combination is rare and valuable. That evening, Maya called her family to share the news. Her parents were thrilled and proud, though they also shared her concerns about the increased responsibility. Marcus, however, was unequivocally excited. Maya, this is exactly the kind of change the business world needs, he said during their video call, his hands moving expressively as he signed. You have no idea how many companies I've worked with that have no clue how to serve deaf customers or employees. This could make a real difference for people like me. As Maya lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling and thinking about her decision, she realized that her natural inclination was to play it safe, to stick with the research role she knew she could handle successfully. But she also thought about David Morrison's grateful smile and Robert Hartwell's confidence in her abilities. Maybe, just maybe, it was time for the shy intern to step out of her comfort zone and discover what she was truly capable of achieving. The weekend stretched ahead of her, full of possibility and the weight of a decision that would shape the direction of her career and perhaps her entire life. As the day wound down, Maya gathered her things and prepared to leave. The office had a different energy in the evening, quieter and more relaxed as employees finished their tasks and headed home. She said goodbye to Jennifer and a few of the researchers she'd met, her natural politeness overcoming her shyness enough to make a decent impression. Walking to the elevator, Maya reflected on her first day. It had been overwhelming in some ways, exciting in others, and she felt cautiously optimistic about the weeks ahead. The encounter with David had been a bright spot, a reminder that her background and experiences, even her shyness, could sometimes be exactly what someone needed. As the elevator descended toward the lobby, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, and while she might never be the most outgoing person in the office, she was beginning to believe that she had something valuable to contribute to this professional world. The lobby was quieter now, with only a few employees coming and going. Maya pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out into the Chicago evening, the city's energy washing over her as she made her way toward the train station. She pulled out her phone to text her family about her first day, eager to share the small victory of helping someone and the growing confidence that maybe, just maybe, she belonged here after all. That night, as she reviewed her notes from the day and prepared for tomorrow's challenges, Maya had no idea that her simple act of kindness had been observed by someone whose opinion would soon change the trajectory of her entire career.